Okay, this video is an attempt to, with all brevity, go through the characteristics of the characteristic features of writing a review. And this is, in a way, similar to your analysis or your analytic essay. The difference being opinion here that should not have been editorialized in an analysis, especially when you move into a literature class. Your professor doesn't want to I liked it, I didn't like it kind of report. Um, the review is sort of a mixture of an analysis with, breaking down, your opinions of it. And they need to be ethical. We'll discuss that in a second, and unbiased, and those sorts of things. Now, as the assignment says, you could do a book, a movie, a play, a musical album, a season of a television series, a short story, a specific smartphone app, video game, amusement park, hotel, restaurant. And if you'd like to do something else, you can certainly contact me for permission. You do need, technically, and we haven't gone over this yet, a works cited page and you can look at my MLA8 PDF I posted that should help you to do a works cited page on what you're citing. We'll get more into that in the following couple of weeks before your final essay. Remember, this is your next to final essay, and you don't have a whole lot of time on this one, but this one should go relatively easily. So let's get into these characteristic features of what you're trying to do here, and I think this should answer most of your questions. Now, before we do get into that, this does need an introduction and a conclusion. The introduction, maybe why it's relevant, some history of whatever you're reviewing, those sorts of things. And again, you don't have to be too scared of the first person here. That's fine. Whereas in other situations, you have avoided first person, but here you can get away with a little of it. It may take away a little of the authoritative tone, which we'll talk about later. But in the introduction and the conclusion, I think it certainly will not kill what you're doing. If you can avoid it, that's fine. But if not, go for it. So let's look at the characteristic features of these things, and then using some of the samples I've given you, I'm going to come up with those. The first one is relevant information about the subject, and this is really how you're going to organize this. You're going to do your you're going to start with your subject and give us the relevant information based on organization too. Fits in a little more with criteria, but the second point I'm going to make, but within the space that you have, right? I mean, this essay needs to be 750 words, so you're going to take into consideration how much time or how much space that you have in determining what is relevant. Do I go crazy with a certain area, or do I not? One of the good things is I'm planning an upcoming trip and bought a guide on the city, and again, they have very little space, and so what relevant information they can get to, they have to get right to the point, as opposed to something that you may buy an entire book about one small thing, and again, a lot more information becomes relevant based on space. But let's move into, more importantly, the criteria for the evaluation. That's really what you're going to break down as far as your organization goes. So, I cannot stress enough, everything does not have to come in threes. It can be fours, fives. You don't want to get too high up there because of the space, and you don't want to ever drop below three because it comes off weird. But let's say, for instance, I were doing a restaurant, right? Certainly the food quality is going to come up. The service is going to come up. The atmosphere is going to come up. And then possibly the price, okay? The price range for different things, what's affordable and what's not. And so in that situation, I would have a, 6-paragraph essay, my introduction, those 4 examples that I gave you, and then a conclusion. And so that's really what you kind of want to do, is break it down into these criteria for the evaluation in determining that. And also within criteria, consider, I'm trying to think of the word here for that. applicable comparisons, maybe the term that I'm looking for. You want to find things that are, you don't want to compare the Olive Garden, which is, not a great restaurant, to a five-star restaurant, right? And that should be part of your, criteria. You don't want to do a compare and contrast here, but again, you don't want to compare McDonald's to the, a restaurant that you're not going to get out of for less than $300, right? That's not sort of a fair criteria. So you're going to break down, what is important. Like I said, I gave you the example of a restaurant, maybe a hotel. It is the comfort of the bed, the size of the rooms, the location, the view, the staff, right? So you're going to develop those kinds of things. I was reading some reviews of the Arlington Hotel in Hot Springs recently, and again, cleanliness seemed to be an important criteria there. And so you want to determine those things, and that's really what's going to give you your paragraph. So if I had determined, for instance, let's go to an amusement park, okay? And that's something, we do quite a bit of. And, I would establish that down to things like rides, right? Are the rides good and, fun, exciting, complex? The whole theme of the thing as far as the experience goes, whereas you have Disney World that's very themed versus a Six Flags that's not so much, or a Magic Springs that's not so much. Expense may come into there. Again, some places you may be paying, $2 for a Coke, or you may be paying $6 for a Coke. The clientele, the other people who are there, may be important. Cleanliness may be important, or that could fall under something like how well it's run. Disney, you throw a piece of trash on the ground, and 3 seconds later, someone has, it's been swept up, as opposed to, another location that may not be the same way. And so you really need to determine there, again, what those criteria are going to be. And that's how you want to start your essay, knowing how you're going to organize this based on, again, let's go back to restaurant: food, service, atmosphere, price. Now, that's probably not the best order. You probably want to do price. You could do price with food and combine those two, or you may go, food, price, service, atmosphere, right? And so you need to really think about what order floats there well, and where you need those kinds of things. A well-supported evaluation, that's important here too. Again, one trip there or hearing it from someone else, you need to be familiar with this. So I think of it in terms of a new album. Right now with iTunes and those kinds of things, we tend to buy single songs. My day, we bought entire albums, and you needed to listen to the album 3 or 4 times at least through before you got the full experience. What may the first time through not have been that great of a song may someday become your favorite song, and so you want to keep that in mind as you're going through. You need to support it not only with your knowledge of it, but then again with your support of backing up what you have to say. I mean, again, don't just say the service was terrible. Give me a specific example. Why was the service terrible? Right? No one had their food on time. Everyone was waiting late. The hotel never. You were supposed to check-in time was 3:00, and you didn't get checked in until 7 that night. Things like that. Video games. It kept locking up or freezing or whatever. And so you need to support that with specifics. Attention to the audience and the audience's needs and expectations. That's key. And that's one of the things that you want to think about. I'll give the example of my mother. She and my father will go to Branson. I'm not a big Branson person. And when she comes back, they like shows. I'm not a big show person, especially when it comes to Branson. But when I asked my mother, how was the show? She always reports on the bathroom. The guy who plays the violin, Yashaki, whatever, she sort of endlessly goes on about how great the restroom was there. But that's not what I don't care about the restroom there. I want to know so much more. How was the music? How was the the building, how are the acoustics, there, how was the price? There's a whole lot of things that go into there, and bathroom is not something generally that an audience, wants to think about, or that an audience really cares too much about. And so think about, what do your audiences, what do they expect from this? And so if you focus on little things that other people may not, then that's not something you want to really base your criteria for the evaluation on. Now, you may include it in the conclusion. That'd be a good way to get out of your essay. One of the example is the Aloft hotels, which are part of W hotels, which we stay in quite a bit. And one of the things that irritates me about the Aloft hotels is to get ice, you have to call the front desk, right? They don't have ice machines on every floor. Now, that's not something that I would probably mention in a review of it in the body itself. That's not worth, basing a paragraph on. It may come up in service, but it's something that I may include in the conclusion or to kind of help me get out of it. But, again, that's not something the audience really expects. An authoritative tone, that's important. You're only as trustworthy. We'll discuss later before your final essays do about ethos, and that is, does the reader trust what you have to say? And so you need to take an authoritative tone with this. Students kind of get scared a lot of times when they're reviewing things like movies. A perfect example is I recently saw the new Wonder Woman movie, and again, I'm not that person who complains. I'm not a movie snob. Generally, action movies, I love. I like action movies. I'm rarely disappointed. Sorry, I'm rarely disappointed with action movies, but just did not care for Wonder Woman, right? And so, if I were addressing that and I were writing a review of that movie, I wouldn't say, well, my opinion doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying? And water down what I have to say. Some people really liked it. I would be sort of authoritative. This is what is wrong with Wonder Woman. And not give room, again, for people to disagree. It is a review. They know that they can disagree. When you read a review in a magazine or see a review on television, it may completely disagree with what you thought of the movie. And not to let that really interrupt or influence your opinion on whether or not you're going to see it. So don't be scared to take that authoritative tone. Students tend to think they have to, really, well, I thought, just to say it. The movie was, Wonder Woman to me was boring. I can say it's boring, and nobody's going to go, is that your opinion or is that fact? They know it's opinion. This is a review. That's what I'm saying. I know a lot of people who just thought it was the most exciting thing they'd ever seen in their entire life. So take that authoritative tone. Finally, and this is important, you need, just awareness of the ethics of reviewing. Now, this is not something you're going to actively seek to prove, okay? But you want to avoid things like letting, you're going to write an essay and you're about a restaurant, right? And you're going to give it a trashy review because that's where your ex-boyfriend works and he treated you like crap and whatever. So it may be a good restaurant otherwise, but you just want to sort of trash it because, your ex-boyfriend works there, or you work at a competing restaurant, or so take that into consideration. Even though a review is by definition partial, you don't want to seem biased in your decision of that, because you don't like that, right? I mean, again, don't start out with, well, I hate all horror movies, and then trash a horror movie. You want to address that, again, notice when I talked about Wonder Woman, I said I generally like action movies, right? I love movies with female leads. So, again, I'm letting you know there of this, that I have awareness of this ethics when I'm reviewing that to people. It has nothing to do with the setup of it being about a woman, or that it being an action movie, right? I came into it unbiased. Again, you don't have to openly, shove that down my throat. I swear to God, I'm being unbiased, but you want to avoid language that's going to make you seem biased, okay? Now, I know the turnaround on this essay is very, very fast, but it should be an easy essay to write. Pick something you feel strongly about, for or against. Find that criteria, break it down. And again, it can kind of be all over the place. I mean, some things are good, some things are bad. There's a restaurant, Little Rock, I won't give the name. I don't want to be sued for slander, but I've heard again and again, it's relatively new, maybe a year or two old. I've never been because I've heard, the food is good, but the service is absolutely atrocious, that you have to wait, 45 minutes for food that should have been, done quicker, more quickly. And so think through, that it can be positive and negative, and then use your introduction to give a, on the whole, yes, I had to wait 30 minutes for my meal after I ordered, but it was well worth it, and kind of conclude that all up. Let the reviewer know, is it worth staying in that hotel? Is it worth buying that album? Is it worth going to that restaurant? Or, to sort of balance things out. Again, Motel 6s, not the greatest motels in the world, but you may say, if your budget's $26 a night for a hotel and that's all you can spend, it's well worth it. If you can go up to 100, stay someplace else. And so think about that to get out of your essay. Now, if you have any questions, of course, you know my phone number, so give me a call, and I'll talk to you soon.